The mahogany door slammed so hard that coffee cups rattled on desks 3 floors below. Marcus Chen stood frozen in the hallway, mop in hand, watching through the glass as Gerald Hawthorne, CEO of Hawthorne Industries, hurled a crystal paperweight across his office. It shattered against the wall, joining the debris of what appeared to be an entire desk's worth of contents now scattered across the floor. Marcus had seen many things in his 62 years on this earth. He'd seen diplomats break down in tears. He'd watched warlords refuse to budge. He'd witnessed the precise moment when a single word could save thousands of lives or condemn them, but nothing quite compared to the spectacular tantrum of a billionaire who just lost a major contract because his own arrogance had finally caught up with him. "You!" Hawthorne's voice boomed through the door as he spotted Marcus. "Get in here and clean up this mess. And be quick about it. Some of us actually have important work to do." Marcus nodded quietly and wheeled his cart into the office. The familiar scent of expensive cologne and leather mixing with the sharp smell of spilled bourbon. He'd been working as a janitor at Hawthorne Industries for exactly 3 months now, ever since his retirement funds had evaporated in a bad investment scheme. Nobody here knew his real name was Marcus Chen Baptiste. Nobody knew that for 27 years. He'd been one of the UN's most decorated conflict resolution specialists, fluent in 8 languages, trusted by presidents and warlords alike, and Marcus preferred it that way. "Pathetic," Hawthorne muttered, pacing like a caged animal while Marcus began picking up the larger pieces of broken glass. $17 million gone, because some uptight diplomat in Jakarta decided we weren't culturally sensitive enough. Can you believe that? He laughed bitterly. 20 years I've been building this company, and some bureaucrat with a fancy degree thinks he can lecture me about respect. Marcus said nothing, just continued working methodically, his weathered hands moving with the same precision they once used to draft peace accords. "You know what your problem is?" Hawthorne suddenly turned to Marcus, his eyes glinting with that particular cruelty that came from too much power and too little perspective. "People like you just accept your place. You don't fight. You don't rise. You push a mop around and probably can't even spell ambition, let alone understand what it means." Marcus paused, holding a piece of the shattered paperweight. It was engraved with the words, "Excellence through leadership." The irony wasn't lost on him. "Actually, sir," Marcus said softly, his voice carrying a weight that made Hawthorne stop mid-stride, "I can spell ambition just fine. It's diplomacy that's the tricky one." Hawthorne's face twisted into something between amusement and contempt. "Diplomacy, please. Don't tell me you think you understand diplomacy. I understand enough to know that your Jakarta deal didn't fall apart because of cultural sensitivity," Marcus continued, his tone still gentle but now carrying an unmistakable authority. "It fell apart because you called Minister Wijaya's assistant a glorified secretary in an email, and you referred to their traditional negotiation process as backward time-wasting." The color drained from Hawthorne's face. "How do you—" "I clean your office, Mr. Hawthorne. I see your emails on your screen. I hear your phone calls." Marcus set down the glass carefully and straightened, meeting the CEO's eyes for the first time in 3 months. "And I recognized the pattern because I've seen it 100 times before. Arrogance dressed up as confidence, impatience masquerading as efficiency, and the fundamental failure to understand that every person you meet, from a minister to a janitor, deserves the same basic respect." Hawthorne's jaw worked soundlessly for a moment. "Who the hell do you think you are? Someone who spent nearly 3 decades negotiating peace treaties in places where one wrong word could restart a war," Marcus said quietly. Someone who learned that the security guard who opens the door often has the same intelligence network as the general sitting across the negotiation table. Someone who discovered that true power isn't about making people feel small, it's about making them feel heard. The office fell silent except for the ticking of an antique clock on the wall. Hawthorne sank into his leather chair, suddenly looking much older than his 46 years. You were UN? Chief Negotiator for East Asia and Pacific Affairs. Retired in 2024. Marcus returned to collecting the broken glass. Bad investments, medical bills for my wife's cancer treatment, the usual American dream turned nightmare. Needed work. Your company was hiring. Hawthorne stared at him, something shifting behind his eyes. And you didn't think to mention this when you applied? Would you have hired a janitor with a resume that intimidating? Marcus smiled faintly. Besides, I needed the job, not the ego boost. And honestly, Mr. Hawthorne, I was tired. Tired of politics, tired of posturing. There's something peaceful about cleaning. You make something dirty into something clean. The results are immediate and honest. I've lost the Jakarta contract, Hawthorne said, his voice suddenly small. $17 million. 2 years of work. And it's not just the money, it's the precedent. If word gets out that we bungled a deal this big, other international prospects will evaporate. The board is already calling for my head. Marcus finished collecting the glass and stood, considering the broken man before him. He thought about walking away, about finishing his shift and going home to the small apartment he shared with his wife, where they counted pennies and watched old movies and found happiness in the simple fact of surviving another day together. But then he thought about something his mentor had told him 30 years ago in a tent in Bosnia. We help not because it benefits us, but because we are capable of helping. That's what separates civilization from chaos. Minister Wijaya's sister runs a textile cooperative in Surabaya, Marcus said. They've been trying to break into the American market for 5 years but can't afford the import fees and marketing. If you were to, say, partner with them, give them access to your distribution network in exchange for their endorsement of your Jakarta project, you might find the minister more receptive to reconsidering. Hawthorne's eyes widened. How do you know about his sister's cooperative? Because I helped negotiate the microloan that started it back in 2019. The minister's family were refugees during the East Timor conflict. I worked their resettlement case. Marcus picked up his mop. Real diplomacy isn't about power plays, Mr. Hawthorne. It's about finding where interests intersect and building bridges across them. And it always starts with respect. The CEO stood slowly, walked to his desk, and pulled out his phone. Would you be willing to help me draft a new proposal? Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Only if you can spell diplomacy. For the first time that evening, Hawthorne laughed. A real laugh, stripped of pretense. I honestly don't know if I can. Diplomacy, Marcus said gently. But the spelling is the easy part. It's the meaning that takes a lifetime to learn. 6 months later, Hawthorne Industries announced a groundbreaking partnership with Indonesia's textile sector, opening markets for 300 small cooperatives and creating thousands of jobs. Marcus Chen Baptiste was named Senior Vice President of International Relations, with a salary that finally paid off his wife's medical bills and then some. But every Friday afternoon, you could still find him on the 3rd floor, mop in hand, chatting with the cleaning crew, because he'd learned that respect wasn't something you showed only when it benefited you. It was something you practiced every single day, with every single person, regardless of who was watching. And that was a lesson worth more than any contract, any title, or any amount of money in the world.